We are going to start in 10 seconds right now. Okay, so welcome to your webinar on effective phone calls in English. My name is Marina, and I'm going to be telling you all about how to make the best phone calls. The class will last an hour, and at the end, we'll have a 15-minute slot for any questions you might have. We're going to start with the basics. Oops. Okay, what makes a good telephone call? We're going to talk about several little things, and we're going to look at each point in more detail. To begin with, as you guys can see on the PowerPoint, we're going to talk about before the call. What do we do before actually picking up the phone? Then beginning the call, during the call, some tips, pointers, vocabulary, and finally ending the call. All right, so before the call, okay, so the first thing we got to do is prepare. It goes without saying, you should plan what you want to say, especially if you're making a phone call in another language. Prepare your answers to any possible questions. So brainstorming what you think your customer or the person you're going to speak to is going to ask you is probably a very good idea. If you can, send an email before the call. You can even, ask some questions, get your answers, so you wouldn't have to panic before that telephone call. And of course, have all information available. So it's all a question really of preparing. We all get a little bit nervous when we have to make a phone call in our native language or in another language. And that's why I also have this short video on some tips on what to do to kind of defeat that telephone phobia. Now my assistant, my IT assistant here is going to play the video for you guys. The first one on there. Just some little tips on, defeating telephone anxiety. There you go.
Talking on the phone can sometimes be intimidating. Maybe you don't like talking to strangers, or you're worried that you'll say the wrong thing. This is completely normal and actually pretty common with a lot of people. Here are 5 tips that may be able to help you overcome your phone anxiety. Number 1, breathe. This may seem pretty simple, but taking a couple of deep breaths before or during your phone call can help calm your nerves and clear your mind. It can also help you to slow down and give you some time to think through things. Number 2, making practice calls is a great way to increase your confidence. Try calling a local business and simply saying, "Hi, I was wondering what your store hours are today." Once they give you an answer, thank them and then hang up. And just like that, you've made a phone call and gotten some practice. Number 3, asking someone to repeat what they said when you're having trouble hearing them can be helpful. Feel free to say something like, "Sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you repeat yourself?" It's a pretty common request, and it'll help your conversation to go more smoothly. Number 4, if you're worried that you might forget some key information or misspeak, you can write down any important notes before the call. This way, if you freeze up, you can always refer to your notes to help you get back on track. Number 5, if the person you're speaking to is upset or uncooperative, it's important to keep calm and try to calm them down as well. Be sure to listen to them, acknowledge how they feel, and try to approach the conversation from a practical and fact-based point of view. Speaking on the phone isn't always easy, but we hope these tips are able to lessen your fears and boost your confidence.
GCF Global, creating opportunities for a better life.
Am I muted? Okay, all right, perfect. So, like the video said, breathe, practice, repeat.
Now,
There's an audio. There's a video
let me share with
starting.
you
That's
what gave me such a bold, courageous attitude. Is
YouTube
I
player
asked myself
started
a question.
automatically.
See, when
Okay, so as I was saying, breathe, practice, repeat, take notes, and keep calm. Okay, it's just a telephone call. It's not the end of the world. Now, let's move on to beginning the call. Beginning the call. So the first thing, you pick up your phone, you dial your number, And the first thing you got to do is identify yourself. Who are you? So a typical phrase is, hello, this is Jose Calvo from Producto Solero in Spain. Or, my name is Marina Mendive. I'm calling from American Language Academy. So you got to make sure you identify yourself. Then ask to be connected to the person you want to speak to. So you say who you are, and then I'd like to speak to Janet Spencer, please. Or may I please speak to Marina? So those are the two, how to connect. Then what could happen is that you can either immediately be connected to the person, or if it's a receptionist, a switchboard, maybe even a secretary that picks up the phone, they could ask you to hold the line. That means to please wait. All right, so please wait a minute, please hold the line. I'm gonna check to see if that person is in the office. They can then go back and ask you for additional information. For instance, how to spell your name. Yeah, maybe the other person is not sure who you are. So how do you spell your name? They could ask you to leave a message. And if they ask you to leave a message, you have to be prepared to be able to spell your name, and you have to be prepared to give your phone number. When it comes to spelling on the platform, you guys had a list with what we usually, the official list of what we use to compare. However, just use what you feel most comfortable with. Yeah, like for instance, if I were to spell Marina, I would just say M for monkey, A for apple, R for road, I for ice cream, N for Nebraska, and A for apple. So just use words that are easily identifiable in English. You don't need to memorize that list of typical comparisons when it comes to spelling something out in English. Yeah, just the only thing you must be careful with is that you don't use Spanish words. Like I know here in Spain, it's typical to spell things comparing with provinces. So you don't want to say, if your last name has a Z, you don't want to say Z for Zaragoza, because the English speaker person will not understand for sure. All right, so we're gonna listen just to 50 seconds to a short audio that lets us see how to greet a person and how to ask for the person you want to speak to. Yes, that one right there. So just 1 second.
Calling, please.
It's Richard Davis here.
Certainly. Please hold and I'll put you through.
Thank you.
Hello, marketing. How can I help?
Could I speak to Jason Roberts, please?
Certainly. Who shall I say is calling?
My name's Mike Andrews.
Just a second. I'll see if he's in. Hello, Jason. I've got Mike Andrews on the phone for you. Okay, I'll put him through. Hang on a moment. I'm just putting you through.
All right, great. So as you guys could see that, they give us, the receptionist answering the phone and connecting you. Now, once you're connected to the person you want to speak to, just like in any conversation, you once again say hello and say who you are. Okay, so hello, Janet. This is Jose from Product Solero. Then, if you know the person, it is advisable to give a little bit of small talk. Okay, small talk is, talking about the weather. If you know the person well, you could talk about the weekend or the last meeting in which you coincided. Okay, so you want to make sure that if you know the person, it's polite to kind of introduce yourself and talk a little bit about how they're doing. Yeah, so something like, it's nice to speak to you again. How are you doing? Is it still raining there? How's the weather over there? How was your meeting in Copenhagen? Okay, so something like that, which shows a connection between you and the other person you're speaking to. Now, so you've gotten to the small talk and everything. Now let's get down to business. You got to give a reason for the call, right? So why are you calling this other person? You can say something like, I'm calling to follow up on our last conversation. I'd like to give you the information you asked for by email. Or a few more, which we're going to discuss in a minute. So let me see if I can move this. There we go. Okay, so structuring a call, explain why you're calling. And again, I'm phoning to arrange a meeting next week. There are a few things I'd like to discuss. And then is there anything else is the final check. We're going to look at each of these steps in a minute. And again, as you guys can see, planning is important. You got to make sure you think through about what you want to say. Now, the purpose. Here we have other phrases on how to describe or give the reason for your call, right? So I'm calling about the meeting we had last week. Helen asked me to call you to organize our next meeting. It's in regards to the email you sent me. I'd like to discuss this year's budget. We need to organize something, or we have to arrange, which essentially means to organize something. Okay, so you gotta explain the reason why. Now, if we have more than one important thing, it's important to keep a structure on the things we want to discuss. And this is a good way to do it. All right, so there are a few things I'd like to talk about, such as yada yada. Firstly, I want to discuss. Secondly, finally, another thing. So just make sure that, again, and planning is important when it comes to this, that you structure your call, that your ideas are very clear so that the other person doesn't get lost when you're speaking to them. We don't have, in telephone conversations, we don't have the body language to be able to tell if somebody is confused or not. We have to rely on what we hear on the other end. Okay, so structuring is important to make everything clearer. Now, continuing with the idea of having several things to discuss, you got to make sure, and again, because we don't have that body language, you have to make sure the other person is understanding what you're saying. So what we do is we use a lot of checking phrases, right? So things like, is that okay with you? Is this a good time to talk about this? Do you have time right now? Have I caught you at a good time? Do you have a moment now? Okay, so that's just to check that the other person actually does have the chance to talk to you at this moment, because it could be that they don't. Now let's imagine the conversation moves forward. All right, it goes smoothly. You're discussing one of your issues, but there's something. Oh, 1 second, I think. There we go. Sorry, missed that slide. But there's something you didn't understand quite well. So we have different phrases we can ask. The first one, I didn't hear you well. Okay, so I can't hear you. Can you repeat? I didn't catch that. It's the same way to say, I didn't hear you. Okay, I didn't catch that. Could you repeat? Sorry, I've lost you. Yeah, maybe someone is speaking too fast, or they're, or the connection gets cut. So sorry, I've lost you is a way to ask for repetition. Would you mind repeating that, like we saw in the video? Can you read that back to me? Yeah, so maybe you give someone notes and then you ask them, can you read that back to you? Or if they're taking notes, they will tell you, I'll read that back to you. And finally, could you spell that, please? Yeah, a difficult name or something like that. You would ask someone to spell it for you. Okay. Nope, not moving. 1 sec. Okay, deciding. All right, so conversation's going great. Everything's going well, and now you've come to the point where you have to make decisions. These are some good phrases. All right, you're just agreeing with the other person that this is what you're going to do. Things like, okay, then we have decided to write an email to this person. Right, then I will order X amount of product. Or I will leave this to you, which means, they're the ones that are going to do that job. So you're going to handle this. Is that correct? Asking for confirmation there. And shall I deal with the logistics? Is basically, shall I deal with the minor details that go around whatever you're organizing? Now, this is all supposing that the conversation's gone great. The person wanted to speak to you. What happens if they don't want to speak to you? about something or they don't have an answer. Then we go to deflecting. Yeah, so that's the case where someone's like, I can't talk with you right now. Can we deal with that another time? Or they don't know the answer. So I'll have to get back to you about product XYZ. Maybe even let me check with a warehouse and call you back. Or I'll have to ask my colleagues about that. Anything like that in which basically you're kind of just deflecting the issue for later on, okay? Finally, we want to make sure that whatever you've decided gets carried forward, okay? So it's called further action, and it's basically, could you send me an email to confirm that? Would you inform Anna? I'll be sure to follow up with a call next week. Let me know if you need anything else, okay? So just phrases to make sure that the conversation is carried forward, that it doesn't just stay there and become stagnant. And finally, we reach the end of the conversation. So ending the call, you want to confirm the result of the call. Everything was clear. I'll wait for your response. I'll find out that information and call you back. My colleague from the marketing department will contact you shortly. And always end politely and positively. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for your time. Have a good day. Okay, so you always want to end on a good note, never on a negative note. Now we're going to listen to a short video where you guys can kind of see a little bit everything we've talked about from beginning to end in this telephone conversation.
Hello, Frankie speaking.
Hello, Frankie. It's Stephen Davis here. Look, I know you're busy, so I'll get straight to business. It's about the timeline on the proposal. You say you need 6 weeks to complete phase 1, but I'm afraid that's a bit long given the tightness of the other deadlines. Would it be possible to speed it up by 2 weeks to finish in mid-May rather than the end of the month?
That may not be possible for us. We have to wait for materials to arrive from the suppliers.
Might you be able to hurry them up a bit?
It would be difficult. They have to wait for fresh shipments from the suppliers, and given the transport strike in Venezuela, they're in a difficult position themselves.
I see, but could you perhaps consider another supplier?
I don't think that would be a very good idea, I'm afraid. This particular supplier has an excellent track record for quality. We designed the worktops with them in mind, and if we had to choose someone different, we need to rethink the whole concept, which would take us back to square one.
Okay, let's go on to the models. Would it be possible for them to be delivered by Friday?
No problem.
Good. Well, I was talking to Nelson Ung about the development plans for phase 3, and he seems to think it would be better to defer the lighting until after final approval from the architects.
Why?
Well, he thinks there may be objections.
On what grounds?
Well, of course, they have the bigger picture in mind, and it's them who are in daily contact with the builders.
It may be possible, but I need to talk to him myself, I think. Could I reserve judgment for the moment and get back to you when I've spoken to him?
Okay. Could I ask you to make it soon? I've got some people breathing down my neck on this.
No problem.
Well, those are the main points for now. Would you be able to let me know by next week?
There shouldn't be a problem.
Good. I'll talk to you then. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Okay, so as you guys could see, that was a formal telephone call, and you guys could see more or less the interaction between these two people and how it went. Now, let's talk a little bit about selling on the phone. There are 5 stages to a sales call: getting through and introducing yourself, find out about the customer, identify a need or problem, explain features and benefits, and finally close the call. Now, the first thing is very similar to the previous point, which is just getting through and introducing yourself, right? Again, you're saying who you are. Good morning. My name is Jose Calvo. I'm calling from Puerto Solero in Spain. So introducing who you are and then introducing your company in this case, because you're interested in selling a product, right? So we're a company based in Seville that specializes in Spanish gourmet food products, right? Or anything related to your business and what you're interested in selling. Now, the next point is finding out about your customer. This is a point that you could do partially maybe before the telephone call, but definitely have prepared the questions you want to ask your customers, right? Some examples of these would be, how many shops do you distribute gourmet products to? Are you familiar with any of our products? When were you thinking about starting? So on and so forth. But again, the finding out about your customer, I would advise having a list of questions that you want answered before making the call. Now, when it comes to sales, you got to identify a need or a problem that needs covering, and that's why you're trying to sell your product to that company. So, for instance, gourmet products are sometimes difficult to market. Your shops require a wide variety of products. Prompt delivery of stock is essential. So you got to figure out what it is your customer needs and then adjust to that and how your company can solve that issue. Features and benefits. Well, you guys know your business better than anybody, but obviously you need to sell yourself. Explain why your business is the best one for the company you're calling. So some examples of these would be language like, this offer includes free promotion and displays at food fairs. We assist our clients with marketing materials and sample products for their potential customers. We have an excellent delivery service that delivers overnight. All right, so you've explained everything. Everything is clear. You've talked about your benefits, your features, and finally, you want to close the call. Would you mind if I call you again next week? And thank you very much for your time, and do not hesitate to contact me if you have further questions. So basically, again, you want to make sure with the first question that you leave a point of connection with that future customer, that it's not just a final point. And again, always make sure to thank the person you're speaking to for their time. Finally, make a final check. Yeah, just to make sure that they understood everything. You could go back and ask, is there anything else you would like to know? Is that everything? Just let me know if you need anything else. So make yourself available to that future client or future customer. Now, let's imagine you've sold something, but now someone is complaining, or maybe you're the one that has a complaint. All right, so dealing with complaints and inquiries. The complaints, there can be so many, right? So the goods are not damaged. However, there's a quality problems, or maybe the goods are damaged. Usually when you have to give a complaint, they're going to ask you for the order number. So the typical question is, could you tell me the order number? And we will watch a video where this is very clear. Handling the complaint. You want to get the information first and then give an explanation for that problem. So we're going to separate it in two, the whole complaint part. And the first part is the problem, right? You have a problem, so you're going to call and say, excuse me, but we expected delivery on Monday. Sorry, but you promised X amount of products, but you delivered Y. You said that we would have something, but instead you got something else. Or, you know, the worst problem ever, we haven't received it yet. Or it's now 2 weeks late. Okay, so depending on the problem you have, you can be really clear about it on the phone. Yeah, you don't want to, no small talk here, no being polite, just be really clear about what the problem is. Now, you want to request the other person to do something about it, right? Because there's a problem and you want the other side to fix it. So something like, could you please, let me know when this will be done? Could you please send us the product again as soon as possible? So depending on what your needs are, you want to make sure you request that action. Then you could get a little bit more aggressive depending on what it is, but something like if you don't send it immediately, we'll have to cancel the order. Okay, that's taking it to extremes. Or again, this question is a little bit more aggressive. What are you going to do about it? Okay, so we go from being polite, which frankly, I think it's the best option to always start being polite. And then depending on the reaction you get from the other side, you could become a little bit more aggressive. Depending on what they tell you, you have to accept their action. So, okay, that's fine, fine, that will do, or well, that will have to do. The last one mainly is a bit ironic. You're not very happy with the solution they have given you, but you accept it anyway. However, if you don't accept what they have to offer, then I'm sorry, but that's not acceptable. Just again, be clear. There's no reason to, beat around the bush, and simply know that's unacceptable. Okay, so you want to get to an agreement with the other person without being too aggressive, but you want to make sure, especially on the phone where you can't see who you're speaking to, that the terms of this telephone kind of negotiation is clear. Now, someone else has a problem and they're calling you. So what are you going to do about it? The first thing, once they've gone through the whole introducing themselves, you got to ask them what the problem is exactly. Yeah. And what is the problem exactly is a bit more aggressive. Could you explain exactly what the problem is more polite. Every time we use words like could you, it always makes it a more polite question. All right. And in telephone conversations, it is important to keep that level of politeness. And then just like before, they asked you for an order number. In this case, we're asking for a reference number. All right. So it could be a reference number, it could be an order number, whatever it is that links the product with you. Okay, but you want to make sure to locate what it is that they're missing. Showing you understand. So again, you're in the position of the company and it's the customer that is complaining. You want to make sure that they feel as if you understand them, right? So saying, when they're explaining, saying things like, I see, I understand the problem, apologizing as well throughout. I see, we're very sorry about that. Again, I do apologize. I apologize, I'm sorry. Those kind of interjections throughout your telephone conversation in the case of a complaint really help the other person relax and feel calmer when there's a complaint. All right, so explaining the reason for the problem. So you know what the problem is, and you're going to have to explain it to your customer, right? So one of the first things you can say is, I'm afraid that we can't or we couldn't. Yeah, depending, can't, present, couldn't, past. And I'm afraid is, again, another way to soften what you want to say to that customer, right? I'm afraid that we couldn't send you the package because of a weather situation, or I'm afraid that we can't do that in the case that the customer is, for instance, asking you for something that you can't do. The reason why, okay, they want to know why. The reason is that we don't have the means, or the reason is that our delivery has already left the factory. So make sure you give them a reason why you can't do what they're requesting. If you know why the problem was caused, again, the problem was caused by, and explain it to them in simple terms. Don't overcomplicate your life. Don't go around, telling stories that end up just with the center. You got to go to the core of the problem. The problem was caused by A, B, C. You don't want to make the phone call longer than it is when it's a complaint issue. If it was a clerical or a computer error, you can go ahead and say that as well. And if it was an oversight on our part, which means that if it was a mistake on your part, if it was something that you accidentally didn't do, that's fine too. But you got to say it so that the customer feels understood. There we go. Promise of action will. Okay, so now you've apologized. They've told you the problem. You've showed understanding. You've apologized. You've explained the reason. But the customer still wants to know what you're going to do about it. What are you going to do to fix the situation you've caused? So some things you can say are, I'll deal with it, attend to it immediately, if that's the case. Don't make false promises. I'll organize a replacement right away. I'll get someone on it immediately, which essentially means you're going to have someone investigate the issue. I'll contact the warehouse if it's a case of a wrong delivery or something like that. I'll find a solution and call you back. Is that acceptable? Is that okay? So once you give them the promise of action, once you tell them what you're going to do to fix the situation, you got to confirm with them that they feel that that's an acceptable situation, right? So is that acceptable? Is that okay? Are basically the main questions you would ask. Now, if it's your fault, again, make sure you take the blame. I know it's horrible, but if it's your fault, you got to accept full responsibility. So there's nothing better than to say, it's our fault. We accept full responsibility. We apologize. We are to blame. We should have done something, 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 right? So we should have, and then the verb in the past participle, just to make sure that it's a past situation that you didn't do, okay? So you got to make sure you use the correct tenses in case you use that sentence. Yeah, we should have sent the product earlier. We shouldn't have taken note incorrectly, or something like that. If it's their fault, which could also be the case, you want to make sure you soften it, okay? You don't want to sound too overly aggressive. But generally, start off with, I'm sorry, or I'm afraid, but you didn't follow the instructions, or you didn't, fill in the form correctly, or you didn't inform us. So just start with, I'm sorry, I'm afraid, and then just tell them what you believe they did incorrectly. You can also start with, unfortunately. Unfortunately, you didn't inform us about the fact that there would be no one there to receive the package. Okay, so always soften. When you're blaming someone, you always got to soften it a little bit with, I'm sorry, I'm afraid, unfortunately. So make sure they don't feel like you're putting the blame on them in an aggressive form. Now, finally, the closing of the telephone call where there's complaints. You have to apologize again. It's just a standard procedure. So I can only apologize once again. We are very sorry about this. I apologize for any inconvenience caused. I can assure you it won't happen again. So just make sure you apologize and make them feel like, the company's sorry. It won't happen again. Even if it's not true and you don't really feel that way, but you got to tell the customer that you're sorry. We're going to watch a short video which shows you how to handle a complaint in action. It's actually problems with the delivery, and it gives us as well a few more phrases to work with. All right, so we're going to watch about half of it, and then we'll stop it after the phrases as well before the role play situation within the video.
International Fashion Supplies. John Wright speaking.
Hello, this is Bob Morgan from Chic Boutique. I'm phoning about our latest order from you, which we received this morning.
Oh, is there a problem?
Yes, there is. We ordered 300 dresses, but there were only 200 in the consignment, and they were the wrong color. We wanted pink dresses, and you've sent us blue ones.
Oh dear, I'm very sorry to hear that. Let me just check. Can you give me the order reference number?
Yes, it's GYH 305.
GYH 305. Oh yes, here it is. I see what's happened. You were sent the order for another customer by mistake.
Well, it's extremely inconvenient. We need those dresses for our summer sale, which starts next week.
Yes, I understand, and I apologize for the inconvenience. We've just had a new computer system installed in our packing department and have been having some problems. I'll have the correct order dispatched today by express courier. You should get it by Tuesday. How does that seem to you?
That should be okay. What shall we do with the wrong dresses?
I'll arrange for them to be collected, and please let me know if you have any more problems.
I certainly will. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye, Mr. Morgan.
Key phrases. Listen and repeat. I'm phoning about our latest order.
Oh, is there a problem? Oh dear, I'm very sorry to hear that. You were sent the order for another customer by mistake. I apologize for the inconvenience. How does that seem to you?
That should be okay.
Please let me know if you have any more problems.
Alrighty. So as you guys saw, kind of a little bit the complaints in action, the apologize, let me know if you have any more problems. Those kind of phrases. That video does have an extra part, which is like a role play in which basically they give you the sentences and you have to think of an appropriate reply. I will make sure to post the video online on the platform in case you would like to practice or watch it again afterwards. All the videos we've seen today, we'll put the links up online so you guys can watch them again. Now, before we move on to one last part that I wanted to point out is the language review part. All right, so when it comes to telephone English, as you guys have probably noticed, there are a lot of phrasal verbs, there are a lot of collocations, verbs and prepositions, and indirect and direct questions. Now, the first part is phrasal verbs. The typical phrasal verbs you guys are going to see when it comes to telephone English are the following. Call back, which basically means return your call. Can I call you back later? Can you call me back later? So you would put the object, the personal object in the middle, okay? Call someone back, okay? So it's always going to be call someone back. Hold on, like I mentioned at the beginning, to refer to waiting, all right? So, you know, you can tell someone, it can be a receptionist, they can tell you, or you can tell someone, please hold on, which is basically, please wait a minute. You could also say, please wait a minute, but the more usual term we use in phone conversations is please hold on. Speak up. If you need the person on the other side to speak louder, okay, imagine you can't hear them, you could ask them again politely, could you please speak up a little bit? Yeah, okay, essentially meaning I can't hear you, just speak a little bit louder. Same thing with slow down, right? So the person is speaking way too fast and you want them to slow down. So you would just ask them, could you please slow down a little bit? Okay, so always, if you notice, I soften the request with a little bit at the end so that it doesn't sound as if I'm being too aggressive or too straightforward with them. To hang up, yeah, to put the phone down, you finish a conversation, you hang up the phone, okay? And to put someone through, again, with the someone in the middle, is basically to connect someone. We do use the phrase, I'll connect you, but it is more common for someone to say, I will put you through. And always with I will, all right, I'll put you through, I'll connect you, because it's a spontaneous decision with the verb will. Break up. Okay, so imagine like right now, you know, we're talking on the phone and there's some kind of interference. You're going through a tunnel. There's background noise. So typical phrasal verb that you would use is break up. And you would use it in the following way. You would say, I'm sorry, you're breaking up. Yeah, or the line is breaking up, which means, again, there's interference. I can't hear you correctly. Okay. All right, then going on to collocations. Yeah, collocations, in case you guys don't know, are basically words that usually go together in English and kind of like set phrases a little bit, right? So typical telephone conversations, telephone collocations, sorry, are things like give someone a call, right? So we use the verb give to call someone. You can simply call someone, but I could say, I'm going to give Maria a call. I'm going to give Christina a call, yeah, which means essentially I'm going to call them, but it's a more informal way to say that. I need to make a call, all right? To make a call, you got to call someone. Again, we use it with the verb make, never with the verb do. Take a call. Someone's calling you and you have to answer that call, so you need to take that telephone call. Finally, respond or answer to a call. Please notice the preposition to in there. So you respond to a call or you answer to a telephone call. All right, collocations 2, spend time doing something. All right, so you're spending time speaking with someone on the phone. All right, spend time, not pass time. Remember that the difference is that if you pass time, you're kind of bored and waiting around. Yeah, usually in a business context, we want to think that we're spending time working or doing something. If you always have a meeting, okay, you don't make a meeting, you can, like we saw at the beginning, organize a meeting, but never take a meeting or anything similar. You always have a meeting, right? Just like you have a coffee. Take a message, that, yes, all right? So you got to be prepared to take a message or leave a message, right? So imagine you call someone, but they're not at the office, so you would leave a message. If it's the opposite situation, if you are on the other side, someone calls you and they want to speak to someone else, you can take a message. You can take note of that message. And then afterwards, you would pass on a message. So say, for instance, they're calling me to speak with one of my colleagues, let's say Sandra, and I take a message for her. So I write down the details of the person calling, and then I pass on the message to Sandra. And finally, you do work, all right? You don't make work. Verbs and prepositions important to remember in telephone calls are the following things. For example, inquire about. That basically means to ask about something, okay? A very formal term. You're inquiring about, I don't know, for instance, an invoice or anything similar like that. You could apologize for, yeah, like we saw in the complaints section, you apologize for something. You apologize for having done something. Apologize for, I don't know, the technical difficulties. It could be with a noun or it could be with a verb, but always apologize for. You ask for something. Again, with the preposition for, okay? You're requesting something, so you ask for something. I would like to ask for a coffee. I would like to ask for more details regarding our last telephone call. So you always ask for something. Then you can ask someone to do something, right? I'm going to ask my colleague to play the video. I'm going to ask my colleague to send you an email. So you would ask someone to do something. Interested in, all right? Notice that it's interested in, not interested on. Careful with the preposition there. You're interested in something, okay? You're interested in getting to know the company, or you're interested in receiving more information. So always interested in something. Look forward to. So this you can speak on the phone. I look forward to speaking to you soon. I look forward to hearing from you soon. So it's a typical end of the call language that you can use in both emails, but as well as in telephone calls. And then please notice that it's look forward to, and the verb is in gerund form. It's an ing. So I look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to speaking to you. So, always with ing, that secondary verb, and the look never in gerund. And finally, call about. I'm calling, like we said at the beginning, I'm calling about a delivery problem. I'm calling about a meeting. I'm calling about something. Okay, so you call about something. All right, so to finish off, I do have a few more videos I would like to show you guys to summarize. The first one to summarize what we have seen in the first part of the webinar. Then we will watch another one with some phone sales tips. And finally, to diffuse frustration in customer complaints. But the first one is just to review, again, the first part of our video is just making telephone English calls and getting in touch with the customer.
Good morning, Chic Boutique. How may I help you?
I'd like to speak to Mr. Morgan, please.
Who's calling, please?
This is John Wright from International Fashion Supplies.
Sorry, I didn't catch your name.
John Wright. That's Wright.
Okay, Mr. Wright. I'll try and put you through. I'm afraid the line's engaged. Would you like to hold?
Can I leave a message?
Certainly.
Could you please tell Mr. Morgan our latest shipment has been delayed and that the 300 dresses he ordered should arrive next Friday?
Dress order delayed, arriving next Friday.
Yes, and would you please ask him to give me a call as soon as the shipment arrives?
Of course. Could you let me have your number, please?
Yes, it's 01632 96094.
That's 01632 96094.
Yes, that's right. Thanks for your help. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Key phrases. Listen and repeat.
Good morning, Chic Boutique. How may I help you?
I'd like to speak to Mr. Morgan, please.
Who's calling, please? Sorry, I didn't catch your name. Okay, Mr. Wright, I'll put you through. I'm afraid the line's engaged.
Can I leave a message? Would you please ask him to give me a call?
Could you let me have your number, please?
Role play. Now it's your turn to speak. You are phoning a customer about a...
All right, guys, so if you guys notice, this is the role play section. We are going to go through this section because I do want you to think about the first part of the webinar and what you learned and how you would answer to this particular case. All right, take note of it, and then we can discuss a little bit afterwards in those 50 minutes where we have questions. If you guys have any questions about would this answer be an appropriate answer for this situation or not. All right, so we're going to, again, think about what you would answer in each case, what language you would use.
Problem with an order. You will be speaking to the receptionist. Listen and use the written cues to give suitable answers. After a pause, you will hear a sample answer, which you will have time to repeat. But don't worry if your original answer was not exactly the same. Okay, let's begin.
Good morning, Bradley's Bookshop. How may I help you?
Could I speak to the manager, please?
Who's calling, please?
This is Steve Jones from Wessex University Press.
I'm afraid the line's engaged.
Could I leave a message?
Okay, go ahead.
Would you please ask him to give me a call?
Of course. Could you let me have your number, please?
Certainly. It's 01756 365581.
Thank you. I'll make sure he gets the message.
So if you saw, it's a telephone conversation. It gives you cues on what you would say. I hope you guys have been thinking about it, what you would say at the end. In about 10 minutes or so, we're going to go through questions, any questions you guys might have. Now we're going to watch a second video, which is 5 easy phone sales tips, okay, related to the second part of our webinar today, which was selling on the phone. There is unfortunately an ad on the YouTube video, and I think we're going to have to go through it so we can actually watch it. So please bear with me for 30 seconds while the ad goes through, and then we'll watch that video. Again, take note of any questions you might have. We will be answering questions in about 10 minutes, a little bit less, okay?
Grammarly does more than catch errors. With Grammarly, you can find really good.
In today's world of selling, where salespeople are distracted by things like social media, email, and all of the other technologies of the day, the phone is still the best prospecting tool out there. Just think about it. Because all of your competition is distracted by all of the other methods of connecting with your prospects, suddenly your prospects are getting fewer prospecting calls than they've ever received before. In this video, I'm going to teach you 5 super easy phone sales tips that work every single time. Check it out. Number 1, call prospects early or late. Your competition is typically calling between the hours of 9 and 11:30 or 1 and 5. This means that the real opportunity to actually getting through to your prospects is early in the morning, realistically before 8:30, or late in the evening, starting at around 5:30, 6 o'clock. Just think about the typical high-level prospect. Are they there in the office early in the morning? Are they there late at night? Absolutely. But who isn't there? The gatekeeper. Number 2, drop the enthusiasm. Nobody likes the, hey, how are you guy? Nobody. It's time when we're making our calls to completely drop that enthusiasm and just be genuine. Just start a call with a simple opening and keep that energy low, because prospects are immediately going to know that you're a salesperson the second you use lots of false enthusiasm. Number 3, pattern interrupt. The key is that when you're making a call, when you're starting that phone call initially, you want to switch it up. You want to use an opening that's going to break that pattern where they're going to expect you to sound like a salesperson. So something that sounds like this. Hey, George, Mark Wayshak calling. Did I catch you in the middle of something there? Your prospect is not going to expect you to start with a line that sounds like that. Lower energy and phrased in a way that's a little bit different. Number 4, have contingencies. So often we'll start the call and the prospect will be really busy. Just think of what they're doing. They're typing, they're doing lots of things, and their goal is obviously going to be to get off the phone. If they try to get off, be gutsy, hang in there, have a contingency for when they say, you know what, actually I am in the middle of something. Something along the lines of, you know what, George, sounds totally fair. Would it be okay if I just took 30 seconds, told you why I called, and if after it doesn't make sense, you could feel free to hang up. Does that sound okay? Your prospect is going to immediately be caught off guard, and they're likely to give you that 30 seconds. Number 5, focus on challenges. Most salespeople are starting their calls off by talking about how great their product or service is. Instead, switch it up. Start your call by listing off 3 very common challenges that you're seeing prospects just like them facing, and find out if they are dealing with any of those same challenges. The prospect does not care about your product or service. They care about what they need to accomplish. So there are the 5 super easy phone sales tips that work every time. I want to hear from you. Which of those 5 ideas did you find most useful? Be sure to just share in the comments below, and I will respond to every single comment that I can get to. And
all right, guys. So there's 5 phone sale tips again. Just a little bit to help you out. This guy has a bunch of videos on phone sales in case anybody's interested. You can find him on YouTube. I will be putting the link to the video on the platform for everybody to watch it again if they feel the need. The last video we're going to watch again is to sum up the complaints. All right, so that's the 3rd part of our webinar today, was handling complaints. In this case, it's a 2-minute video. We're just going to watch about how to diffuse frustration, and then we'll open the slot for questions you guys have. All right.
Dealing with an upset customer may be the most difficult aspect of customer service.
Hi, this is Jason. How can I help you this afternoon?
You tell me. I'm looking at my new statement, and I see that you people have charged me again for the same fees I've been calling about for months now. I'm sick and tired of being told that it's handled when pretty clearly it's not.
That's not easy to even listen to. So how do you respond to it in a way that will help? First, remember that the customer isn't upset with you. They're upset with the situation. Don't take it personally. Then remind yourself that angry customers often struggle to be objective. So before trying to resolve the problem, it's important to diffuse the customer's frustration. So how do you do that? Start by allowing the customer to vent. It isn't easy and it's rarely pretty, but try not to interrupt or contradict the customer, even if you believe they're wrong. Confrontation will lead to escalation, and the goal is to calm the customer down so you can look for a solution.
I'm so sorry to hear that. Let me take a look at your account and find out what's going on. Can you remind me when this started?
Fine. The first fee showed up 3 months ago. If you can't fix this, I'm going to close the account.
I completely understand your frustration. Let me see what I can do to help get this taken care of for you right now.
Listening and responding with empathy helps diffuse the customer's frustration. This is one of the quickest ways to de-escalate tension. Listening with an open mind and expressing your understanding lets your customer know that you acknowledge their problem. Respond with your positive intent to take action to resolve the problem as best you can. Keep your focus on the customer and follow through on your desire to help them.
I'm glad I was able to get that issue taken care of. It may take up to 24 hours for your account to show the changes, but you shouldn't see any more of these fees in the future. Thanks for working with me to figure it out. I want to apologize again for the inconvenience.
Thanks, Jason. I appreciate your help.
By removing the focus from yourself and staying focused on understanding and resolving the customer's problem, it's easier to stay detached and not get wrapped up in an emotional outburst. Maintaining an attitude of caring and concern helps to diffuse customer frustration. Allow them to vent as needed. Listen and respond with empathy. You'll never be able to work in customer service without running into angry, frustrated customers once in a while. But there are ways you can ease the tension and allow you both to work toward an acceptable solution.
All right, guys, so that sums up everything we've looked at today. Let's open the question slots. You can either speak to me, if you have a microphone, speak to me. I do have my headphones on, as you guys can see. Or if not, you can just type them up in the chat window, and we'll respond to those too. So, questions? How? I don't know. But everybody, I think you have to turn on the microphone. Okay, we got a little technical. I can read the chat. I don't know if maybe the audio is off, but I can read the chats. Questions. I see Milagros is saying that she understands everything, which is great. Does anybody else have any questions? Great. I'm glad it was helpful, Milagros. There's 28 people, 26 now over here. So nobody else has any questions. Everything's okay. Just something that I was thinking while I was watching the video. When it comes to giving your phone number, remember that the 0 can also be said as O. Okay, so if my phone number is, for instance, and I wrote it down, where did I write it down? 017563, just to give you guys an example. So I could say, I don't know if you guys can see it in the video. If it's 017563, I could say 017563. Okay, so just in case someone ever tells you a phone number and uses O instead of 0, or remember as well that double numbers, double digits can be said as double. So it would be something like 0 or 017563338. Okay, so that's an important thing to remember in case somebody says "oh" and you get confused. Okay, I see Gerardo. Wait a minute, I see somebody said something about an email. 1 second. Milagros understands everything. Emiliana has a question. Emiliana, go ahead. Type it up or ask, because I can't seem to hear you. And then Christina, all of this information, the PowerPoints, you have some extra activities, all of the stuff I've seen and the videos, we will put them up on the platform. So you could go over them on the platform and check with them. If you still have questions after reviewing the information on the platform, you can definitely send us an email and I'll try to make it a little bit clearer. But the PowerPoint, if it's not on the platform yet, which I think it should be, but if it's not there yet, we will be uploading it to the platform as well as the videos. Let's see. Gerardo, thank you. You're welcome. Clear. Thank you. Perfect, Manuel. Okay, Emiliana. Yes, like I said, everything will be uploaded on the platform. You guys can see it there. Remember that on the platform you had and you still have a folder in documents that's pre-class activities. And within there, you have some activities you can do to practice. You're going to have this PowerPoint on the platform as well. I'm going to make sure the videos we've seen today are uploaded onto the platform as well. And furthermore, you do have some post-class activities to do to practice all of this. Okay, so you have on the platform within a folder called post-class an activity called the perfect phone conversation, what would you say, telephone phrases. So again, you have several documents that can help you with that. It's not, let's see, Christina, I mean, if I'm talking with my customer who is not clear, should I suggest me to continue conversation by email? Okay, so if you're having troubles with, if you're having problems with a customer and the conversation is not clear, first, I would suggest repeating, trying to ask them to go a little bit slower, to ask for clarification. And if it's still very confusing, then I would suggest confirming everything you've talked about by email. Definitely. Definitely, because even with a normal conversation where everything is clear, it's always a good idea to send a follow-up email to make sure everything that you both spoke was 100% understood. Awesome. Anybody else? Okay, welcome. I'm glad you guys find it so helpful. Just one last thing that I want to mention is that as well, like I said, on the platform, you have several activities. You have 3 months of Open English available, unlimited access for you guys. And finally, the best way to practice this in the end, it's telephone English. And with anything that involves conversations, the best way to practice is having a telephone conversation. What you could do if you're a little bit afraid of starting out by just picking up the phone and practicing like we saw in that first video, a suggestion is to someone in the office, call people within the office. Okay, either someone in another floor, someone in another room, call them in practice. You both have the language, you can both practice. You're welcome, Enrique. I'm glad it's helpful. Another thing you can do, and this is something the Academy offers, is to do a role play. The Academy says if you guys are interested in doing a role play, they can assign you a partner, and then you'd have to get in touch by email. Let me write that email for you guys, but this information is on the platform as well. But I will write the email for you guys here. So if you send the email American Language, studentsamericanlanguage.es, and you request role play, okay? You can, the Academy will pair you up with someone and you guys can practice, and then we'll go back and we'll give you feedback and tell you a little bit how to do the cues for that role play. If you feel a little bit shy about it, want to do it, leave it for later, just go ahead and practice with yourselves, practice with a partner. You guys have all sat, 26 different people, 28 I think before, some people have left, have sat through this webinar. So you guys know the language, you have it online, just practice, 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 practice. Does anybody else have any other question that I can help with? Anything related with telephone English, the vocabulary, the phrasal verbs, the sales pitch? Nope, nope, nope. I mean, it's 2:10. I don't know if it would be okay to end 5 minutes earlier. It's meal time. Yes, I totally agree, Christina. Totally agree with that. In any case, I am at your disposal. I will be doing the next webinar in October, which is about presentations. So if you guys have any doubts as well regarding this, get in touch with us and we'll be very, very helpful and we'll be very at your service, basically, to help you out with anything you guys would like to know. Okay, I think we'll end it here then. Thank you everyone for being there. Talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye, have a good day. I guess I can still see Christina.